Hello, friends. Welcome to VR Infinity. I am back to take you once again, flipping through the pages of history, the revolt of 1857. Last time we discussed about the onset of the rebellion. Today, moving further, we shall be aware of the course of the rebellion. So, let's begin. The events of Meerut and Delhi set the wheel of the rebellion rolling, which gradually found pace across different locations and cities with the passage of time. Initial stages. The onset of the rebellion at Meerut and its subsequent spread to Delhi marked the beginning of the rebellion. In its initial stages, the rebels proclaimed their last Mughal ruler, Bahadur Shah Zafar, as the emperor of entire India. This was due to the huge significance which Mughal names carried, especially in northern India as rulers of India for over 3 centuries. After the proclamation, civilians, dignitaries, and nobility pledged an oath of allegiance to the rule, while the ruler issued coins in his name to assert his imperial status. However, the proclamation had some adverse effects as well. For example, it turned the Sikhs of Punjabs away from the rebellion as the relation between the Sikhs and the Mughals had been historically hostile. The overwhelming reaction of ordinary people to Zafar's proclamation, which called for the war, surprised the British, as they had long ceased to attach any importance to the authority of the last Mughal ruler. Initially, the rebels made some success and were able to push the forces of the company. They captured several important towns in Haryana, Bihar, and central provinces in the United Provinces. However, when the Europeans reinforced themselves and counterattacked, the mutineers were severely at disadvantage due to the lack of continuous supply of ammunition and a centralized leadership system. Although the rebellion produced some highly efficient leaders in the form of Bakht Khan and Tatya Tope, it was not sufficient enough, and for the most part, they had to rely on local rulers and princes for leadership, most of whom were largely inept. Delhi. The sudden beginning and upsurge of the rebellion left the British shocked for quite some time initially, making them slightly slow to counter back at first. The European troops, which were already present in India, took some time to organize themselves, and eventually two columns left Meerut and Shimla and began to march towards Delhi. The European troops, which included two Gurkha units serving under Bengal army in accordance to a contract with the Kingdom of Nepal, met the main army of the rebels near Karnal in northern Delhi and fought the Battle of Badli Ki Sirai. The Europeans met with significant success in the battle and were able to drive the rebels back to Delhi. Eventually, the company troops established a base north of the Delhi and began the siege of Delhi. It lasted for 2 months from July 1st, 1857 to September 21st. The initial phase of the siege saw the British, being outnumbered by the rebels, threatened to get forcefully withdrawn from the conflict, but reinforcement from the Punjab Mobile Column under the leadership of John Nicholson arrived on August 14 and completely changed the course of the conflict. The addition of besiegers resulted in the storming of the city on September 14th, in which the attackers suffered heavy casualties, including John Nicholson. Still, this enabled them to gain a strong foothold within the walls of the city. After a week of intense fighting on September 21st, the British were able to retake the city completely. The end of the conflict witnessed the besieging troops to sack and loot the city, largely in retaliation for the actions of the rebels. The British soon arrested Bahadur Shah Zafar, followed by the shooting of his sons and grandson at Khuni Darwaza near Delhi Gate. The victorious besiegers then organized a column and pressed forward to address similar problems of other cities. After the end of the rebellion, Bahadur Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon, where he met his death in 1862, bringing the Mughal dynasty to an end. Cawnpore. Cawnpore was a major violent episode in the course of the Indian Rebellion. In June, barely half a month from the onset of the rebellion, Sepoys under General Wheeler of Cawnpore rebelled against the British and besieged the European entrenchment. Being a war veteran, he relied more on his cordial relations with Nana Sahib, an aristocrat and fighter of the Maratha Empire who led the rebellion at Cawnpore. rather than on harsh measures to thwart the rebellion, thereby taking fewer measures to fortify the entrenchment and arrange for supplies and ammunition. After enduring 3 weeks of siege of Kanpur, which witnessed continuous casualties of people belonging to the side of the Europeans, Nana Sahib made an offer of safe passage of the besieged to Allahabad on June 25th. Everything began on the morning of June 27 as per arrangements, with the European party leaving the entrenchment and arriving at the dock, where apparently boats were waiting for them. However, along with the boats, the dock was also surrounded by sepoys positioned on both the banks. Having a clear line of fire, the sepoys opened fire on the Europeans without allowing any of the boats to escape from the dock, killing almost all the male members of the party. The surviving women and children were taken as hostages to Nana Sahib and confined to the home of the local magistrate's clerk, also known as Bibi Ghar. The episode was far from the end at this point. The survivors were joined by refugees from Fatehgarh, the city where the first sign of rebellion of Cawnpur was witnessed, taking the count to around 200. Meanwhile, relief forces of the company under the command of General Henry Havelock began to advance towards Cawnpur, making it clear by June 15 that the rebellions will not be able to hold Cawnpur for long. Fearing that the relief forces were coming to rescue the hostages, the rebels decided to execute all of them. Consequently, all the captives were executed on July 15th without leaving any survivor. This unfortunate event was later named as Bibi Ghar massacre. Company forces reached and recaptured Cawnpur on July 16th. The killing of women and children resulted in strong reactions from the British, for whom Cawnpur became a war cry for the rest of the rebellion. Punitive measures in terms of retributive justice were taken by Lieutenant Colonel James George Smith who took the command of Cawnpur after its recapture. The British engaged themselves in a fury of violence against the sepoys and non combatant locals in the form of widespread killing, hanging, and looting. Nana Sahib disappeared towards the end of the rebellion, with some accounts stating that he fled towards Nepal. So, that's for today. Bye for now. Stay safe. Hope you understood everything. Thank you.